Hey everybody, my name is BlakJak and welcome to my review for Crash Mind Over Mutant. Before we begin, I want to mention the aspects that I feel make a good video game. Those being story, presentation, gameplay, and content. So, the story is alright. I like that it's a little different than the other Crash games, but the more that I think about Crash storylines, a lot of the later games were a little different than the original trilogy. But whatever. Anyway, I love the humor in this game. The humor is like eating popcorn. It's mindless, it doesn't take itself too seriously, if at all, and it was a nice breath of fresh air. Compared to the other titles that had come out that year, titles like Gears of War 2, Grand Theft Auto 4, Dead Space, Metal Gear Solid 4, so on and so on. Amidst the grittier, more serious-toned stories that appeared in 2008, Crash Mind Over Mutant's tale of a crazed scientist betraying an evil mask just to take control of an island was a little more palatable to some at the time. Although the story may not be winning any rewards for a gripping narrative, it's suitable enough to keep my interest as well as give me an incentive to continue on this adventure. The characters, on the other hand, are slightly different. None of them are sane except for maybe three characters. Let's start with that potential third character real quick. Coco is played by Debbie Derryberry. She's been Coco since Wrath of Cortex, as well as being the voice of Jimmy Neutron, among other characters. Coco is pretty normal, except she's possessed for a bit of the game, and then after we free her, she's not really in the game after that, so... Not the most memorable character, but definitely not a bad one either. Greg Eagles reprises his role as Aku Aku. He's also played Grim from The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, among other voices. Aku Aku is the straight man of the game, as well as being the voice of reason. I like Aku, despite a few of his jokes landing flat for me. The other sane character is Uka Uka, who is played by John DiMaggio. John was Uka Uka in Crash of the Titans, but he's been with the series since Nitro Kart as Tiny Tiger. I think. I haven't played that one. He also plays Marcus Phoenix and Jake the Dog, among other voices. Although Uka Uka is not in the game for very long, he is an integral component to Dr. Cortex's most evil of schemes. Wahaha. Speaking of the mad scientist, Lex Lang reprises his role as the lovable, dim-witted, evil inventor, Dr. Neo Cortex. Lang has been Cortex since Crash Twinsanity, but he is also Wargreymon, as well as a dozen or so comic book characters from different video games and shows. Cortex is really interesting in this game. He's funny, he's rude, he's entertaining, and he engulfs all the other characters when he walks in on the screen. And I believe that's in part because of Lex Lang's amazing performance. Dr. Nitrous Brio is played by Maurice LaMarche, who also plays Mr. Freeze in the Arkham games, as well as other well-known voices, such as Yosemite Sam and Father from the K&D series, among other characters. Brio is flat-out hilarious. He's crazy and invented endings! Endings! Damn it!
I invented endings!
He has some of my favorite lines in this game, such as,
I was in the first game!
and
Eye of the tiger. Hadouken! Paper covers rock, but paper can't stop rocks. It makes no sense!
Brio might not steal the show like Cortex, but much like his character, he is a top-notch silver medal to Cortex's gold medal, despite being the one who has invented the medals in the first place.
That looks totally awesome. I designed it and I want 4 of them.
Oh hey, Nolan North, you're back! I haven't seen you since Assassin's Creed. Nolan North plays Engine. I didn't know it was Nolan North until I had to look it up. Engine is insane. It probably has something to do with the fact that it seems like everyone on this island is starving, other than the bandicoots, that is.
Your delicious sister.
Delicious?
Precious! I meant precious! I'm gonna eat her. Watch! Watch Bandicoot!
But Engine isn't in the game for too long. But he's pretty interesting. I like his
I forgot what I was going to say!
line because it was so fucking random. But there isn't much to say about him other than like the 1 or 2 funny lines. Chris Williams has been Crunch since Tag Team Racing. This portrayal of Crunch is my least favorite though. It's like Mr. T was suffering from schizophrenia, as well as having really bad short-term memory loss. Crunch is supposed to be like the comic relief one-liner character, but in an ocean of other comic relief one-liner characters, his jokes just didn't really land with me personally. I didn't find it all too funny, but I feel like that's more on the writers than on the actor. Granted, I don't know how much control Chris Williams had as Crunch in this title, so who knows, maybe all the lines were ad-libbed. Jess Harnell has been Crash since Tag Team Racing. He's Wacko Warner and the plumber from Ratchet & Clank Future Tools of Destruction. Not my favorite plumber, but he's the plumber. Crash is also crazy, but he's more of a chaotic neutral character, not really doing good things to do good things, but he's just reacting to people's harassing him. He just happens to be a tad bit crazy while doing the things that he does. Crash isn't a bad character, but he's not a good one either. Other notable voices include Mark Hamill as the Xenus and Tom Keeney as the Ratnicians. Now, let's talk presentation real quick. As you can see, this game is visually unique. The cutscenes are each interesting in a visual perspective. They all emulate a different style of animation or genre, whether it be shadow puppetry or late 80s to early 90s shonen anime, specifically a Dragon Ball Z-like anime. Each cutscene is a love letter to these specific references and animation as a whole. To me, these are the best part about the game. The character designs I like. I think Crash looks okay, and I believe tribal tattoos were big at the time, so it doesn't really bother me that he has them inside of his gloves. I even like the small detail that he has little paw prints under his shoes. I think this is the best Coco design, personally. I like the look, I like the clothes, I like the small details like the oil on her shirt. Crunch is okay, I guess. The metal arm is cool, but like, what happened to it? In his first appearance he had a metal hand, but skipped 8 years later and now he has a metal arm? Like, what the hell happened in Crash of the Titans? He even has scars on his body, so I'm even more interested in what happened. But since I never played Of the Titans, I'll never know. I like his design, but I don't think I prefer this one over the older, more evil-looking Crunch. Aku Aku looks neat. I feel like his newer design makes him look more expressive, but I think much like Crunch, I prefer the older look, but I think I'm basing this more on nostalgia. Cortex looks grimy and weird, but it suits his character pretty well. He even gets a chance to transform at the end of the game, so that's pretty neat and kind of funny. For all the other characters, you don't actually get a good look at them, outside of the very stylized cutscenes, that is. I will say though, Uka Uka looks more menacing in this game, I feel, over than his classic design. It's just too bad that the tone of the game, or rather, the tone of the scenes he's in, didn't really portray that menacing look too well. I don't mind most of these designs, but I will say I find the models to be really muddy. The oil on Coco's shirt, or the scars on Crunch for instance, look really bad. They're pixely and they're not done very well. Although that might just be a PS2 version thing, I've never played the 360 version. Some mutants are unique while others are a little more on the generic side. Like the Battler, who's just a giant bat. Reminds me of Man-Bat. Some of the mutants can be a little hard to tell apart at first glance, those being the Spikes and the Snipes. I remember confusing the two when I was younger, and I believe it's because they're both brown, spiky looking enemies. I know the Snipes have feathers, but when I was younger I thought they were purple spikes. Other than those few mutants, I like the designs of the mutants as a whole. I think they're fairly unique. I like that some of the mutants are combination monsters, while others are both mechanical and organic, while others still are just elemental big animals. There's even the Grimly who's a ghost, but he's like Rayman or Haunter, so it's cool. The small enemies are all neat looking. Everything from the crazed starving Ratnicians to the thing-like Slappies are all unique. I like the look of most of them, except for the Brat Girls. They're just teenage female Ratnicians, and that's fine for the level they're found in, but it doesn't offer a neat or unique design for me. I love the painted backgrounds that you see throughout the game's environment. It's a nice bit of contrast compared to the 3D land you'll be playing on. Well, speaking of those 3D landscapes, I think the variety is nice, as well as vibrant, and each area is distinguishable from one another. For instance, the desert looks neat and filled with a ton of interesting structures like half-pipes and loop-de-loops, while the ice area has a flowing waterfall area and large statues that shoot torrents of water, and icebergs. Even the evil school is a spiraling death trap with flamethrowers and spinning spike columns that chase students down to mercilessly eliminate them. As a whole, I like the environments. I think they're pretty good. The sound effects are cartoony, but overall not too memorable. The soundtrack, composed by Mark Barrell, is okay. I like the synthetic feel to it, but none of the songs really stuck with me. For most of the games that I played for this channel, I can at least tell where some of the songs came from, and can even probably name one or two of them. I was blown away by the amount of songs that are actually in this game. Even looking at the titles of the songs, I don't really recall where some of them even play. For the most part, each song either sounds too similarly to one another, or they don't sound distinct enough. The music isn't bad, but it's not memorable, and on top of that, it doesn't feel like Crash Bandicoot music. Which is a shame, because the songs that I do remember, I do like. So now I get to talk about the gameplay. This game's a 3D platformer with a simple combat mechanic. Crash can punch with a 4-hit combo, or with a stronger heavy attack that breaks guards. You also have a near useless guard button. It's near useless because you have a better way to protect yourself against the mutants. You can press the counter button to easily dodge the mutants' attacks, and if you press it again with good timing, you can counterattack them. I didn't even mention the hidden combo where if you press the attack button twice and then the heavy attack button twice, you can form a really strong attack that also breaks mutants' guards. Since this is a platformer, it's expected that Crash has some way to traverse the landscapes. Crash has a floating jump with an oddly heavy double jump that doesn't offer much of anything in terms of height. But if you want height, you're going to need to rely on two methods. The first method is your handy dandy spin jump. Just rotate one of the analog sticks, then jump. The spin drill move offers some distance coverage as well, but it can lead to you dying quite a bit. We'll talk about the second method in just a second. Dying means nothing in this game. The game has pretty lenient checkpoints. The worst checkpoint is right at the end of the game, where if you die at any time, you'll have to redo all 3 short challenges before the boss. But if you die at the boss, you just start at the boss. Each mutant has its own attack pattern. Some attack quickly, while others attack slow as fuck, while others attack at a distance, and the TKs are a pain in the ass because they somehow do it all at once. The only way to defeat mutants is to keep hitting them until their star gauge fills up, then you can hijack them. Hijacking them allows you, the player, to play as the mutants. You can hold up to 2 mutants at a time. Jumping off of them is the second way to gain height in a jump, by the way. Playing as the mutants allows you to use some of their attacks and combos that they use on you. These small enemies are all interesting in terms of how they fight. Some enemies have annoying range attacks like the Brat Girls and the Xenus, while others are more of a melee-like enemy like the Ratnician or the Slappies. The other thing the small enemies are good for are the fact that they are easy to kill and build up your multiplier. The more hits you do on any enemy, the more your multiplier goes up. While running around, you'll be picking up mojo. Pick up enough mojo and you and your mutants will gain a level. The blue ones are worth 1, the pink ones are worth 5, and the gold ones are worth 100. You maintain your multiplier for as long as you don't get hit, or fall into a pit, which makes the Xenu and Brat Girls annoying in large groups because they can attack at a slight distance, and if you're trying to get that 20 times multiplier while being surrounded by a ton of mutants, it's really disheartening when you get stunned by the megaphone attack or the I-beam attack. Traversing the world is okay when playing through the story for the most part. The world is small, so you'll be walking, climbing, and jumping your way through it. But the mutants can help you too. Some mutants are needed to progress throughout areas in the game, like the Rhino Rollers or the Ratsicles. The Grimleys are neat because they can slow down time, making them necessary in Mount Grimley, for instance. There are even certain spots that Crash can dig through. Digging is annoying and boring for me personally because it's just mashing the attack button over and over and over and over again until you get through a small segment. But that's the thing, they're usually small segments, so at least they don't take up that much time. And some of them you can even just skip outright. Since the world is interconnected, there's going to be some backtracking. That's all well and good, I suppose, but could it not be annoying? For instance, there are locations that you can't even go back through, meaning if you went the wrong way, you first have to run all the way through the current area just so that you can get back to where you needed to go. It's a good thing the world is small, so it's not the worst thing ever when you eventually have to back travel. The other thing is, why are there some parts where you can teleport to other locations? Or in that one case where the game does it for you? It's like the devs knew that people wouldn't like backtracking, so they were like, oh, okay, cool. Now you can just instantly go there. I'm not mad at this, it's just like, why couldn't there be a fast travel system implemented in the mission menu or something? It would just solve all these issues. Crash Mind Over Mutant has some collectibles within it. As you progress throughout the game, you'll find a bunch of voodoo dolls lying around. Collect all the voodoo dolls in a pack, and you'll earn concept art. Concept art can be earned by completing the side missions in the game as well. You can find them by pressing the select button and going over to the side mission menu. I'm not sure when these become available, but there are also mini games you can complete by going around and talking to the NPCs in specific locations. Completing all 10 rounds in each of the 5 minigames unlocks a costume. 1 costume per minigame, 5 in total. There are also challenge clocks you can find as you explore throughout the game, which give you a time challenge. Upon beating it, you get a lot of mojo, making leveling up a little bit easier. You can even find these golden Wumpa fruits which give you a health upgrade. There are also power-ups strewn about throughout the game, like the speed power-up, which allows Crash to run faster and have an instant kill kick attack. There's also a punch power-up, where you and the mutants gain 4 times boost in your attacks. There's also a Wumpa fruit, which heals you, and a purple strawberry thing that heals your blue bar. The game can even be played with a friend in 2-player mode. All you do is plug in a controller and jump in the game. The opening cutscene shows you can play as Coco, but I think that's only an Xbox 360 thing because I was only able to play as Carbon Crash. Carbon Crash can do everything you can do, including hijacking mutants. When in 2-player mode, you both can turn into a mask and offer suppressive fire with an onslaught of chickens. The cheat codes are really unimpressive. There are only 2 that are neat, those being Shadow Crash, which turns you into a shadow, and Freeze Touch, which makes you freeze enemies when you attack them. There's also Big Head mode, which stopped working after I re-entered it, and the rest are just power-up drops. Unfortunately, the backtracking isn't the biggest issue in this game. This game is a buggy mess. You'll get stuck randomly, you'll go through the floor, or worse, the world. The game is filled with dropping audio, and the worst thing is, the game can crash. No pun intended. Crash Mind Over Mutant may not be the best Crash game ever, but it's a nice short game that I feel anyone should play at least once. I don't think it's worth getting 100%, however. That's just a lot of wasted time running around beating up enemies just to level up your mutants. So I'm going to give Crash Mind Over Mutant an okay score of 6.5 out of 10. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next playthrough.